budget. Welcome, and you're the only guy here, huh? Don didn't come with you.
No, we're busy over there.
Okay, I bet you are. Okay, reading of the public notice. This public hearing is being held today to hear public comment regarding Portage County Solid Waste Management District's proposed fiscal year 2020 tax budget. The tax budget has been on display in the Portage County Commissioners offices and the Portage County Auditor's office and available for public viewing since June 14, 2019. Notice of this public hearing was published on June 15, 2019 in the Record Courier newspaper. Okay, this is public comment and questions time. On the budget, I didn't have any questions on your budget, I don't think, Bill.
So the only thing I had a question on was, isn't it year 2021 that we're supposed to start seeing an increase in the revenue due to the purchase of all the carts and the way the taxes fell?
It should
a
go,
year
it should go
in
back.
arrears.
Yeah, it should go back up, but we still have a few years yet on the closed loop loan.
Oh,
And then
the trucks.
the OWDA was actually a 10-year loan. So the game plan is once we pay off one loan, then we're gonna roll that money towards the next one.
okay, cause I for some reason I had in my head, cause I see like the encumbered balances keep
Right.
going down, but I thought 2021, we
Yeah.
were supposed to see
Yeah.
a change in that. Okay.
Did you have any questions on his budget, Kathleen?
No, I did not.
Okay,
Do we have a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
so moved?
Second?
Roll call, Julie?
Kathleen?
Yes.
Sabrina?
Yes.
Vicky?
Yes. Okay, now we'll start the regular session.
I'll make
Is
a,
this the add-in, is that what this is? No.
yeah, we gotta adopt his budget.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll make a motion, to adopt the Portage County, Solid Waste Management District tax budget for fiscal year, 2020.
I'll second that.
Roll call, Julie?
Kathleen?
Yes.
Sabrina?
Yes.
Vicky?
Yes. Do I have a motion to pass the consent agenda?
So moved.
Let's see if I had any questions. Nope. I'll second.
Roll call?
Kathleen?
Yes.
Sabrina?
Yes.
Vicky?
Yes. Do you want to talk about the?
One discussion item.
Is this our picture?
That is your picture.
Okay.
I
There's
did
nothing
not-
there.
I did
It's
not
demolished.
copyright it, so you're free to use it. Generally, what happens is when someone calls in and says, hey, the property is no longer there, most likely it's me who will drive out and take a picture.
Mhm.
Because we've had a few people claim the house is gone, and lo and behold, it looks like a house to me. So this was just basically the way the process works. I go out, I take pictures, I send them to the board, you do a JE, and they're exempt from the recycling fee.
Okay.
This part, if you're not familiar with Newcomer, the western part is in Stowe, the eastern part is in Kent. So this is actually a Kent address.
Okay. So I will make a motion to add a journal entry to exempt 4117 Newcomer House from the recycling service fees.
Second.
Roll call, Julie?
Kathleen?
Yes.
Sabrina?
Yes.
Vicky?
Yes.
5 minutes, right on time.
Do I have a motion to adjourn solid waste?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call, Julie?
Kathleen?
Yes.
Sabrina?
Yes.
Vicky?
Yes.
Have a great day, everybody.
All right, see you, Bill.
We'll reconvene to the Board of Commissioners meeting.
You're welcome.
This is the tax budget of the district library. Come on up.
How are you? I like your shirt, it looks all summery.
Oh, thank you.
Yellow, I never wear yellow.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
I am Kristen Fabian, Portage County District Library Fiscal Officer, and this is the new face.
Hi, I'm John Harris.
Okay.
Hi, John.
Welcome.
How we doing?
Welcome.
Good.
This public hearing is being held today to hear public comment regarding the Portage County District Library's fiscal year 2020 tax budget. The proposed tax budget has been on display in the Portage County Commissioners Office and the Portage County Auditor's Office and available for public viewing since May 24th, 2019. Notice of this public hearing was published on May 23rd, 2019 in the Courier newspaper. You're up, guys.
Okay, well, just a few notes I wanted to make. We're kind of in contention right now because the budget hasn't been passed. So as in years past, we have just remained as fiscally responsible and conservative as possible, considering this is our sole source of revenue, the PLF. So we're certainly hoping that there's a little bit of restoration once that budget is pushed through, but until then, we're just looking at a minor 0.25% kind of revenue increase based on trends over the last few years. Again, just not trying to put all of our eggs in one basket. So while we are remaining fiscally responsible, we're still implementing ideas and concepts and collaborating with other county organizations to kind of broaden the horizon a little bit.
Collaborating, that's the key.
That's
For
it.
so many of us right now.
So are you looking to put a levy on them for a 0.25%? And
Oh, no.
Oh, when you said a 0.25% increase, I'm like, okay. What?
No,
Okay.
our revenues year over year, we're kind of seeing the PLF distribution on about 0.25% over
Okay.
the last few years. We're kind of seeing that kind of increase, that kind of trend. So that's what I meant when I said, this is what we're looking at yearly.
Okay.
So I'm not expecting a huge, 3% increase in revenue. So we're just keeping the pocket strings tight.
And then I had a question, and I didn't see the breakdown for it unless I missed it.
Sure.
Under other resources, under the general fund,
Yeah.
what are other resources considered for you?
So
If you look at the very first page, if you go across the general fund, it says other resources, 86,600.
So there, what we're looking at is, we receive reimbursement for some of the, we use the Renaissance Center in Wyndham as our branch. Our branch for Wyndham is in the Renaissance Center. So they actually reimburse us a portion of our rental fee, so we get revenue from that. We get reimbursement from Garrettsville City for a portion of utility usage that we pay out over the year. So there's a variety of,
So there's like reimbursements for like your salary office, because I remember you used to have a library branch in Brimfield, and I think they did the
that's
same.
closed, yes.
Yeah,
We've closed
okay.
that, we've closed, we actually had one in Deerfield that, we had a computer lab that actually has since closed also. So the traffic wasn't there, and the
Sure.
cost to operating costs just didn't substantiate the traffic, so.
Okay.
But yes, so basically that's what we're looking at, other services provided. We did away with patron fines. We still have, going forward, we began, I think it was January of 2017, we implemented that. So there's still some outstanding on the books. That's why a lot of people question, why do you still have fines considered as revenue? There's still some outstanding, and they trickle in. But we did suspend fines and fees for patrons for late fees. We do still apply for any lost items or materials that have been damaged.
Is there a time frame that you write them off? You say if they've been delinquent so long, you write them off?
No, it's.
There was a little bit of a clearinghouse when we changed our circulation system recently. Normally, in a normal case, cards will expire every 3 years. You get taken out of our system at, a couple of years after that, just so we can have an idea of our patron base and make sure it's accurate. If you owe us money, you're in there forever. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if it's $50 or more, they are sent to collections.
Okay.
So, but apart from that.
Gosh, that's.
So then that answers my next question, where it says you had a line item under miscellaneous revenues, refunds and reimbursements, so that
Yeah.
covers the satellite share of the
Correct.
communities that are.
Does that also include reimbursement from the LC libraries for delivery?
No.
Okay.
No, PLC,
That's separate,
separate.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all the questions I had.
Do you have a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Do we need to pass it, or
Well,
is
we
it?
adjourn and then we pass it.
In
in
regular
session.
Okay, got it. Yes, a second that motion.
Roll call, Julie.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Sabrina?
Yes.
Vicky?
Yes.
And I'll make a motion to pass the resolution to adopt the Portage County District Library's proposed tax budget for fiscal year 2020.
I will second that motion.
Roll call, Julie.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Sabrina?
Yes.
Vicky?
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much for coming in.
We have our
We have the course
consortium.
You got the next one too.
Yeah, so, that's, yeah.
Okay, welcome, and you introduce yourself. This public hearing is being held today to hear public comment regarding the Portage Library Consortium fiscal year 2020 tax budget. The proposed tax budget has been on display in the Portage County Commissioners Office and the Portage County Auditor's Office and available for public viewing since May 24th, 2019. Notice of this public hearing was published on May 23rd, 2019 in the Record Courier newspaper. You're up.
Okay, so this is a very small scale budgeting scenario. I mean, it's really for the purposes of collaborating with Rita and Kent to just share resources. As John had mentioned, we migrated over to a new integrated library system, so that we could share those resources, which has allowed us to have more cost-sharing abilities with other organizations. Apart from Rita and Kent, we share a server with Stowe Monroe Falls and Westlake, so.
Oh, wow.
So we're actually,
Collaborating.
yes, our revenue has seen a little bit of an increase since we're not spending as much, and those cost-sharing abilities are out there. So, same thing here, this is basically, you know, bare bones, and for the purposes of just sharing those resources with Kent and Reed, and you know, just reaching out to the county everywhere.
Does that explain the decrease in the salaries, the collaboration, or is you someone part-time now, or how is?
Well, as far as salaries, PLC really only has one employee. That's the person that handles our interlibrary loan services out of our Garrettsville administrative building. Recently, the person who was in that job moved into the facilities management role with PCDL,
Okay.
and we hired in somebody new as
At a
the
lower rate.
PLC. So,
Okay.
Yeah, and that role actually went unfulfilled for quite some time when the migration was happening, because the service was suspended, the Search Ohio. So there was a good portion of the year where there wasn't salary being paid out.
I see.
Wow. So how's the traffic for the libraries?
It's been good.
No, good.
Yeah, it's been good. We've seen a huge increase in our online resource usage, and some of that is something that, you know, even previously when I was at the branches, there's always this wonderful spike in traffic right after the holidays for everybody coming in to be taught how to use the e-reader that one of their grandchildren got them, so that they can get free, you know, so that they can get library resources on it. But right now is absolutely boom time for us because it's
Summer and
summer
kids
reading
are out
season.
and- yeah.
So yeah, it's summer reading season right now. Our system's got a space theme for summer reading, so we're enjoying that. All kinds of performers out. I think they had a steel drum band
Steel drums, yes.
at Garrettsville on Monday.
I always
And,
like
and if
the
you're worried
reading.
about how that ties into space, I will remind you that Calypso is a moon of Saturn, so we got that one figured out.
You know, we have certain meetings at Reed Memorial, and I had one last night there, and they're always busy. And
Yeah.
I understand it's summertime, but I think it's great, because, you know, certain people talk about, oh, the libraries will be obsolete someday, and it's like, I don't ever see that, but I always enjoy it. And then they have the birds, and they have all kinds of things, so
And
it's
there
very
are so
cool.
many things coming up.
And it's
one
free.
thing- Yeah, and one thing that we're looking forward to coming up is with the census on the horizon, since they're planning on doing a lot of that online rather than somebody coming to your door, libraries are becoming a resource center for that, since we
Right.
have public computer access. We've also been working, actually, next week, I've got a meeting with Job and Family Services about setting up resource centers in the libraries too.
Good.
So,
Alright.
On page 7, your estimated expenditures are higher on the one interlibrary loan fees charged. And then on the furniture and equipment, I'm thinking it was so high last year that it wasn't that high this year because you did what you needed to do last year. Is that what?
We were still, last year, we were billed for the second half of the migration, and then we had to pay a full charge for that point going forward. So we had to pay the rest of our migration fees when we went over to the new ILS system, and then our contract actually began and we had to pay up
Okay.
going forward.
And then the furniture and equipment, I'm assuming that you did that in 19, so you didn't have as much to.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Any other questions? None? I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Roll call, Julie?
Kathleen?
Yes.
Sabrina?
Yes.
Vicky?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to pass the resolution to adopt the Portage County Library Consortium's proposed tax budget for fiscal year 2020.
I will second that.
Roll call, Julie?
Kathleen?
Yes.
Sabrina?
Yes.
Vicky?
Okay.
Well, thank you guys for
Thank
coming.
you.
Jenny, I'll give you a card here.
and thank you all for the new board member.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, thank you for the new board.
Yeah, they
Thanks
weren't
for
able-
helping us with
Oh,
that.
it's
No problem.
nice to meet
They
you.
weren't able to get to the June.
Yeah.
They weren't able to get to the June meeting, but if anybody wants to stop by for the July meeting, they're getting sworn in then. So.
Wow.
All right, everybody, have a
Thank
great
you,
day.
Bo.
You
Thank you.
just dropped something.
Of course I did.
I just thought, yeah, cards.
Thank you both.
All right,
Have a
see
good
ya.
day.
Take care.
Take care.
Oh, boy.
Now we're getting to the fun one, Todd.
Come on up.
I don't think you need an introduction. Tom Gregg. This public hearing is being held today to hear public comment regarding Portage County's fiscal year
Actually,
20.
Are we doing the public hearing now, or is it 9:45?
It's at 9:45.
Yeah, right now it's discussion on budgets.
Okay.
I don't know if we want to start early, right? I don't know.
Probably not.
There's no reason why we can't, is there? Or-
Yeah, we noticed it at 9:45, so we shouldn't hold the public hearing part.
Oh, right, yeah, but I
Yeah, we
mean,
can have
we
this.
can
Yeah,
do the
9:15
discussion
we
now.
put aside for
Discussion.
budget discussion.
Okay,
Um,
sure.
There are a couple issues to discuss. EMA, I don't know if Brian has gotten a hold of you all or tried to get a hold of you all. Back in end of April or May, I believe, he presented a budget. His grant runs July 1st to the following year, so technically he is currently operating in his new budget. He had made a request for some increase. Most of it was in salaries. There were a few in the maintenance lines. He had not heard a reply back as to whether that was approved or not, and I told him I did not believe it was approved as of yet. Because it's a mid-year, there isn't really a formal approval per se. But what we do is we do a budget amendment for the second half of his year. And so the question is he to continue operating status quo where he's at, or is the board going to grant some of the increases he had requested to happen in the first half of this year, the last half of our year, the first half of his year?
I thought a lot of that was contingent on him taking over the 911.
And I told him that some of that was
even more.
being discussed
Yeah.
in with the sheriff and all that, so I'm not sure where the board is at. I don't need an answer today, but I do need you to be aware that
I guess
he is waiting on that, because this is technically his new year.
I think we need to know then what he's requesting, because he's not taking over
Okay.
the
And
911.
Yeah, because for some reason I always correlated that he wanted to bump everyone up, create another
and the
position, just to remind us.
one, I believe you turned to, I'll have him send you guys a
Okay.
summary of what he would
Okay.
like to have done.
Okay, yeah, that would be good.
There were still increases, I know, to staff.
So they'll be
Even in
ready.
his non-911
Okay.
proposal.
Okay.
But I'll get him to send you that specifically. Again, he will continue operating status quo for now. But again, July 1st, so we're into that period where he would like any answer on that.
Do we meet with him during the budget process like we do the
Well,
other
So you
departments?
did meet with him
But that's
when
what
he
we
made the
thought it was
presentation.
for
I
911.
wasn't here at the time, so I'm not sure how much was discussed or questioned. If you would like him to come in for further discussion, I know he'd be happy to. Again, he's kind of one of those odd ones where his budget goes June to June.
He's
You
fiscal.
pass the full budget January to December.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's always this question of whether his increases and all those type of things start in July, or whether you want him to wait till January and implement the second
In
half
the
of
past,
year.
Todd, what have we done?
A lot of times for the raises, he waits till January. Now, I know.
Just to make it consistent with
Yeah.
everyone else.
Now, there's, for example, like some of the maintenance and whatnot, that will get approved mid-year to start, you know, on some of those changes within the year.
As far as the salary goes.
And so for like the COLA, that's always waited until January. Now, there isn't a lot of rhyme or reason on other types of increases, even for your regular departments. Those happen throughout the year. And so there's no reason that they couldn't or could happen for EMA. And that's kind of what he's requesting, is on top of the COLA, he wants some specific
Okay.
adjustments. So those are the ones I think he understands the COLA, he waits till January, but
Now, last July 1st, did we give them raises?
no, they were included in the wage study, of course, and so all
So we adjusted.
increases weighted on that. And then it was decided at the end of last year that none of the grant departments would be afforded
right.
those raises unless
Right.
the grant provided for the increase. And so even though there was a recommendation for it, his staff was not given anything other than the COLA at that time as well.
Okay.
And do you know if he put those increases into the grant that he's requesting from us?
His grant is bizarre. He started the grant, we won't know how much his grant is for until September.
I was just gonna say, it's towards the end,
The
yeah.
state, they request our paperwork, and they're very angry if they don't get it on time, but the state is very lax in terms of letting us know. So we honestly don't know how much his grant is for, despite the fact that he's currently operating out of it. All the discussion, so to speak, is that it will at least be the same as what they were last year. The Fed has actually increased. EMA is a large allotment that comes from the Fed. It goes to the state. The state then decides how to divvy it up. The Fed actually did increase the state award. The question is whether the state is going to
Pass it
increase
on.
the
Increase
locals
it.
now, or whether they're gonna wait until their next biennial budget to show those increases. So there's some confusion, but at very least, people are thinking they're gonna keep the same right now.
Okay.
So what we've planned on is $102,300 grant match, and then anything on top of that would be a transfer from our general fund.
Okay.
So it's possible we may get more, but. we
So
don't know.
did he talk to you, Todd, then about coming here, or?
He just wants to know where he's at, and I told him I would ask the
Okay.
board,
Okay.
if he hadn't heard yet, from you guys about what you wanted him to do. So I will at least tell him that you would like another summary of exactly what he wants
Right,
without the 911.
without the 911,
Do you want him to come in and re-present or rediscuss?
If he wants to, I think he,
Okay,
If
give
he
him that
wants to,
option.
or he can send us, well, whatever he wants to do, since he's already been in once, but it changes a lot of stuff, because if he's not gonna do the 911, I know some of that. I think now, so what you're saying is, he's just looking for the increases that were suggested from the wage study, or is it different yet?
These are, I'd have to go back and calculate. I believe these aren't quite identical to those
Okay.
proposals. I think they're based on his reorganization of other work as well. And I thought he had prepared two proposals, one if there was 911, one if there wasn't.
I think you're right, Todd.
And I think the dollar amounts, though, were still not quite what the study had recommended, based on some other work changes.
Did he
was
do
gonna
any refactoring of job descriptions, do you remember?
They did it, you'll recall, Ryan was promoted, I guess is the right word, to deputy director.
Cody.
You mean Cody?
Or Cody, yeah. early 2018.
Okay.
And at that time, both Cody and Patty were, their job descriptions rewritten and refactored at that time. And they both did get somewhat of an adjustment then.
Okay.
Then they were rewritten yet again at the wage study. And then an alternate was rewritten
For the
for if they
911.
took on the 911. So there was a lot done
A lot of moving pieces
in
and parts.
terms of it. And then, like I said, I think even if he doesn't get the 911, there were some changes he was maybe proposing.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I'll get him to send you a summary of
Okay.
that so that we can move forward on that.
Sounds good.
The second piece is the recommended budget for the entire county. The board had indicated earlier in the year that it would like to be more involved in preparing that document. I had a question. You had decided not to hold any meetings with departments and or elected officials during the tax budget. My question is, do you want to meet with them prior to preparing your recommended budget? The recommended budget we typically put out in September. And that is your first indication of whether you are going to grant some of the requests that people have made. After the recommended budget comes out, we then also hold additional hearings for people who still aren't happy with it, and then we pass the final budget in December. So the question is whether you want an interim meeting to hear from people before you decide on their requests, or whether you want to prepare the recommended budget and then have them come in during that later time period to argue about whether they need additional.
How do we come up with their recommended budget? Do you use their submitted tax budget and their previous year budget and?
Historically, what would happen is the board would give me guidelines and I would prepare it and put that out, and then the departments would come to you and argue whether or not
That
the
makes
included
sense.
items were not. Again, you had indicated you wanted more involvement in the preparing of the recommended.
But Todd, do you get feedback from them actually before you do the recommended budget, or is it just from us? Because I would think they would be better equipped to give.
Yeah, usually I do meet with departments. I have not done that yet this year because I
Right.
wasn't sure how we wanted to
Right.
proceed. There was some indication that offices were unhappy with the process and didn't feel they were being heard, and I thought that's why
Okay.
you had indicated you wanted some change.
Yeah, cause you know what, Ted, I have a note here, I have your budget schedule here. And according to that, it looks like in August, we were gonna offer to meet to discuss requests with folks.
That was one of your options, yeah, have them in August and then prepare the recommendation. in
And then you would
September.
do the recommended budget like September, late September, early October, and then late October, early November, budget hearings are held with those not satisfied with the proposed.
Correct,
So
and
they
not
actually
everybody
had
comes to
two,
those.
they actually had two.
Two chances to come to you,
Yeah.
yes. Is that, do you wanna
Yes.
proceed with that? So in August, actually, do you wanna leave a note for Amy to begin? We'll send out a notice for departments to schedule appointments. Do you wanna hear from everyone or just those who want to come?
Just those who want to
Just,
come.
yeah, anyone that wants to come in.
I'm sorry, can you, what did you just?
So I believe my understanding is that in August, you would like any department interested to come and present their budget requests.
Pre-recommended?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, at that point, then you will decide whether or not to grant some of the increases, decreases, whatever the case may be. After those hearings, we'll put out the recommended budget then for the board. So we should probably have those meetings early August, that way the board
Yeah.
has time to discuss and get changes to me. And then we can put the, we usually try for mid-September, to be honest, it doesn't have to be out by then. But if you're gonna have hearings in October, November, mid-October is the absolute latest to give people time to digest what it is you've given them. So
Yeah.
somewhere between mid-September and mid-October, we need to prepare the recommended budgets.
Yeah.
So when will we be offering for them to come in?
So early August, they
Mhm.
will come and present to you, if they want, any increases perhaps they have proposed, or at least where their budget is. And that will give you a chance to hear from them.
To the second half of August?
We can, I guess I'm envisioning if, let's say departments come to you and say, we need, you and I need some point
Yeah.
for you to say, yes, we're gonna give this to this one, no, we're not gonna give to that way I can organize the recommended. That process will, you know, if we only meet once a week, will take a couple weeks.
We're
2
gonna have
weeks.
to meet more than once a week
Okay.
during that
Yeah.
time, I think.
So in the beginning of September, then add meetings for us to discuss, and we can do that and still get our budget.
And we
September.
normally do at
Okay.
budget. We'll have-
So late August for the presentation.
Yeah, like mid-August.
Because I know
yeah.
Becky and I are both gone that second full week of
Second week of
August, so I feel like
Like the third week.
August starts in the middle of the.
And then we got the fair. So
Well, that's the other, yeah, the fair's at the end there, which
it's
nobody's
right
gonna
around the
come during
third,
that
starts the
week.
third week. I
So the
think.
second full week is the 12th through the 16th, so I'm wondering if,
You're not here then, is
No.
what
Right.
you're saying?
correct, both of us.
That'd be the following
And the
week.
fair is the
Is
end
the
week.
following, yeah.
Do we not meet during the fair?
Normally not.
We're usually out there at the fair.
Yeah, we're at the fair the whole time.
And you won't have any of the elected officials at least come and present.
Oh, that's true.
But we could maybe even meet more, I mean,
You wanna-
if we wanna meet like on a Wednesday also, because, so we can get everybody in, cause
Maybe we could have like a power week that
Yeah.
week of the 19th.
Yeah,
Do you wanna offer that week of the 19th and the first week in September?
Wait, which week's the fair week? I'm sorry. Is it
It'll be
week
the
of
26th. I don't
Yeah.
know, does it start on the Tuesday or the Monday?
It starts on
It's
Tuesday.
Tuesday, so it'll be the 27th.
Is it that late?
No, it's not that late.
No, it's the week of the
week before.
19th.
Oh, is it the
It's,
20th?
yeah, it's the week before.
So we could do the last week in August, first week in September?
Yeah.
That would work
Okay.
for me.
okay, last week in
Last
August,
week
first
of
week in
August.
September, okay.
Well, we got Labor Day in there too, so first week of September.
Are you proposing to add days during those if needed? We
Yes.
would recommend Tuesday and Thursday to start, but then Amy could fill in if-
Wednesday.
depending
Yeah.
on volume. And then that would give us, let's see, December or September. So if we set aside that first week in September, the week of the 9th, then we would discuss.
Yeah, yeah. It just says you wanna have the recommended out by late September or early
So-
October.
At very least, we would use most of that Tuesday, and then maybe we could do a Wednesday and Thursday if needed, depending on how the
So
discussions
that's the
go
week of the
there.
9th of September, right?
Yeah, so we'll set aside the 10th, 11th, and 12th, with the 10th and 12th being the primary and the 11th if needed.
And that's September?
Yeah,
What
That's-
is that for? I'm
that
sorry.
will be our discussions,
Okay.
so that I can prepare the document. And then that would allow us to put out the recommendation by the 20th, which would be the following week. Then they'd give you guys the final draft, and then you could, on the 19th, give your indication that you're satisfied for that to go out to the departments. And then that would give the departments a month to review before we hold the discussions. That would be a good schedule.
Okay.
Okay. So, and then the goal is the drafts out on the 19th, 20th, and 20th.
Of September?
Yeah.
For the recommended.
For the record. Okay. Those were the questions I had. We have about 10 minutes. Do you have any questions for me before the hearing? Regarding that?
Let me look and see here.
Budgetary issues. This wouldn't be over the tax budgets, just in general, I guess, in terms of schedule, process, or anything else. So great.
Let's see here. This is for.
On page G for the general fund, page 4.
I would hold off on tax
Yeah, you
budget
gotta wait
questions
till the
until
hearing.
9:45. I'm just saying, like, in terms of the general
Yeah.
schedule or any of those type of things.
You know what might be
Okay.
helpful for us? We have had, numerous requests since the beginning of the year, it seems like, for increases and stuff.
Mhm.
Where are those at? I mean, I know we set them aside.
The process was Julie has the list and you guys were gonna review it on a regular basis and indicate to her when and if you wanted them to show up on discussions.
Amy.
Rather than constantly bringing the list and saying we don't wanna talk about it. So my understanding was it was gonna be at the board's discretion as to when and if those items came forward.
Yeah. Can you maybe give us a recap of that list? Cause it's been so long. I mean, we're like into July and I mean, just like the Ryan, it's like falls off our radar. But I know there was numerous other requests that we probably need to look at.
They can, send that out again.
Yeah.
Anything else? All right, we'll wait till 9:45.
You're not gonna be here the week of the 16th.
Oh,
Oh,
of September
Yes, you're gonna leave on 13th and we don't.
or the
back till-
14th?
till
Oh,
the
yeah, we
21st.
won't be here the week of the 16th. But that was for, oh. Well, no,
that's okay, though.
that's okay because we're gonna discuss it on 10, 11, and 12, so that's
Right.
before I leave. Yeah.
Well, my vision, I guess, is after the discussions, I would prepare a draft for you to review, so you could email comments in if the draft
Yeah,
doesn't
because
quite reflect what you
recommended,
thought.
yeah, because you have September 19th, 20th to have the
Yeah,
recommended
For the
out,
19th meeting,
so-
I would ask the board if the recommended documents are as you wanted and.
Yeah, I won't be there, but,
Okay.
but we would already have that all hashed out
Okay.
before then, so we're good.
We'll just have to remember that the discussions can't go into the 17th there,
Yeah, because I'll,
to make sure we understand all the discussions between the board and myself at the 13th.
yep, and I'll
Okay.
still be here, so.
Did you want to discuss the Wyndham request? I know that's on your list
Yes.
later. I didn't know if you want to meet present when you do that.
Well, yeah, I think you need to be.
Since we have 10
Well, they've got a
minutes.
$10,000 addition this day. Did you just catch that? They crossed from 203 and 213.
Yeah. And that's even just estimates right now.
And you know, when they say grant, does that mean they don't want to pay it back?
That's their dream, yes.
That's what I thought.
That's what they're requesting. It's up to you whether you grant it that way or not.
Just so you guys know, I am going back and forth with NDS to talk about the funding stream and the requirements, et cetera. And they proposed next week or the following week. So it works for me, but
Okay.
we're going back and forth on dates. So I would like to have a little bit better understanding about what
What's
the
revolving loan
fund
fund.
is and what we've done in the past and how much funding there is.
Well, you know, it probably wouldn't be a bad thing to come to the full board to help with that, because you know what? Just to give us a little bit of history, because they got an exception made for this to come from the CDBG residential fund. And normally this would not fall under there, but they checked and they said it could. And that's the concern, because that was the fund that if we needed to help with funding it up for Chen.
For the, yeah, so you have your CDBG revolver and you have your home revolver.
Mhm.
Home is much more restrictive in terms of the income restrictions. CDBG, I think, is around 80%. Home has it more restrictive, so less people qualify. You currently have around 300,000 in your CDBG. 80,000 of that has to be used for the CHIP agreement because you had, the state doesn't look at the amount of money you have sitting, they look at the amount of time that balance has sat. And so we have sat on a large balance for a number of years, and so they are saying that in order to qualify for more grant, we have to use some of that money towards it. So we had to apply 86,000 towards the CHIP grant. That leaves us around $220,000 out of the CDBG fund. That is probably the primary source that people would come to for your septic and sewer hookups,
Yeah.
which right now, of course, Oakwood is requesting money for that, although when the NDS lady was here, she indicated only 8 people applied, only 6 people qualified. Now, whether more people will apply or not, I'm meeting next week with sewer. Portage County Water to go over the schedule of when they're gonna send notifications that people have to begin hooking up. That may jog more people to actually start applying.
Yeah.
The key is probably only half of those people will qualify based on the survey that RPC had done earlier in the year.
Mhm.
Chin, however, there's definitely, it already is designated as low mod. And there's estimates of 60 to 65% of those people would qualify, which that's 250 homes
Yeah,
in
I
a Chin
know.
allotment. Chances are good that the number in Oakwood will be able to be handled by the CHIPS, the normal housing procedure, and then maybe need a little bit from the revolver. But there's no doubt that those grants will not be able to fully handle the Chin unless we would get a separate grant just for that, which is a possibility, and we'll apply for it. So that's kind of where we're at
Yeah,
with
but
this.
if what you're saying, then it doesn't leave us a lot. If you're saying it's only gonna leave us about 208,000, they're requesting 203.
Right,
213.
220 is what, yeah, and they would want 213 of it, which money does come in. The question is whether you want to put it all
Where are
together.
you getting 213 at?
They added it wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, cause in the letter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you add it
But
up, it,
we can wait, I mean, they didn't really give us a time frame on when they wanted to hear.
Well, I'm sure they wanna hear sooner or later,
The
but.
board had just indicated to bring it back this week, so we did.
Is the CDBG funding a Board of Commissioners decision made in an ad hoc basis, or is it a process?
So,
overseen?
this has been a point of contention since I came here, which
Cause
was
that's what
6 years
seems
ago.
weird about this request, is it,
So,
I don't have
and
the context.
that has been the complaint. The revolving loan funds, basically, you have the federal grants. Those grants are given in blocks, CDBG and CHIP. Portions of those are made loans on properties. As those loans get paid back, it comes into your revolvers. And Portage County has always focused very heavily on loaning rather than granting money. But however, those loans don't need to be paid back until you sell the property or try to refinance. So, it's possible people could sit on these for 40 years. Generally speaking, people like to refinance, and so we get the money back a little bit. But anyway, we have almost $1.5 million in outstanding possibility, meaning loans on homes that could come in. So that money comes into your revolver. The revolvers have the same restrictions as the grants in terms of income qualification, all those type of things. However, the application process is totally up to the board. The board has entered into service agreements, administrative agreements. The actual grants are administered by RPC, the revolvers are administered by NDS. The vision has always been that that process overlaps, meaning people who apply and don't get awarded a grant should be filtered through. And according to the two, that works fairly well. So we have historically had a problem with projects not coming out of the revolvers. The money sits, the money sits, the money sits. And then all of a sudden we get this request, hey, somebody wants to do this, let's use the revolver for it. You're sitting on balances, we have to get it done, things are rushed to the board, and then very quickly it goes out. The board has always been frustrated with that process because you don't feel you have the time to deliberate. And communities are frustrated with that process because they don't feel that they had an opportunity to request the funding. You're gonna get 200,000 to Wyndham, and the very next day you're gonna hear from Brimfield and Ravenna and some of those saying, well, wait a minute, we didn't know we could even try. So there has long been talk about creating a process where there's, similar to what we did with the income tax, putting out notices, hey, the board has 50,000 we wanna get rid of out of the revolver, does any communities have ideas? That has never happened. So as of right now, what has always happened is requests have come like this to the board to decide individually as they come whenever it's decided, and it's by whoever happens to know that the money is there to request.
Yeah, and it seems like it's also a little bit guided by NDS or RPC.
And so they are your administrators, meaning.
Like NDS brought
They
Wyndham
certainly bring it
here
to you, yes.
and
People
brought
can
it
come to the
their
board.
attention, it
Yes.
seems.
And
then
well, in
we're
fact,
kinda
NDS is the one who went to Wyndham and said, hey, we can recommend this for you.
yeah.
So as your administrator, they are what you envision as your primary source. So yes, most of it does come through them. The board itself has the final say. You can award this independent of them if you want, or you award it through them.
And they don't
that's up to
have
the
an
board.
independent process.
They do not have an evaluating process, and like on this, you know, at least with the CHIP and the CDBG, there are recommendations that are presented in a package because it's the package grant of, you know, this would be loan grant, et cetera. With the revolvers, you have a lot of discretion in what you do with them. And historically, NDS has not provided you recommendations on what they think you should do, they have just left it up to you.
Have those ever been used as like a grant type?
You did grant Manaway, and that was, you know, we've had a lot of problems with the Manaway, but that was a $75,000 grant originally, and then another 25 because of all the issues that came up with that. That was done out of the revolvers.
So
I
we've
know-
set a precedence there, haven't we?
Well, yes and no. That was part of what triggered all the discussion of do we need a more formal process to do that. Brimfield came with requests for the Pharmakitas house, and they were turned down. They were turning the Pharmakitas house into their senior center. And you'll recall they had trouble getting the sewer line from wherever it was to up to the house. So, I mean, we have turned down. There was a group home just last year where they renovated 2 homes. I can't remember the organization. You did those as loans on those properties. So when those homes are sold, that money will come back to us. So
Is that
there
on
isn't a
Ravenna Road?
standardized practice.
Was that on Ravenna Road?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I went to that.
I can't remember who did, but that came to you, we did it as a loan
Is Manaway the elevator?
on the property. Yeah, there was the bell tower and the elevator.
Oh, Manaway, oh, that
Um,
went forever.
The elevator was where they
Well, we're still not done with
tried to
that.
do work on
You
the
know, I
road or
was looking
something,
at
and
that
that
on
caused
original
problems.
planning, and I didn't see it, and I was hoping that.
No, because they can still come to us. Remember, we told them we would give them, what was it, 40,000 or something?
You offered up to 26, but
Oh,
they had
that's
to
right,
pay
which
it
was
first, and they had to show us the
Reimbursement.
inspection reports that it was completed and done before we were gonna give them any money.
Have
And of
we
course,
heard
it isn't.
anything?
Well, it isn't completed.
I was gonna say, I don't
So,
think it is.
As of right now, it's out of
May
our
have fell off
hands.
of regional planning.
This has
but-
been going on since 15, I think.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they tried to do the work themselves to save money, not realizing it was federal money, I think, was part of the problem. And so they didn't, you know, some of the safety steps and those type of things didn't get done. They've got to go back and do them. In some of the cases, it's harder to go back and redo something than it
redo.
is to
It's-
just have done it. So
We
that's
gotta,
what that project is.
we gotta have our hearing,
Yeah,
it's
you
nine,
remember, you
almost
remember,
9:50. Okay.
Go back to that included here and see when you want to discuss it.
Yeah.
Alrighty. This public hearing is being held today to hear public comment regarding Portage County's fiscal year 2020 tax budget. The tax budget has been on display in the Portage County Commissioner's Office and the Portage County Auditor's Office and available for public viewing since June 14, 2019. Notice of this public hearing was published on June 15, 2019 in the Record Courier newspaper. Okay, Tom, you're up.
I am unaware of any comments or concerns regarding the tax budget, and so I would recommend it being passed as is unless the board has questions.
No, the only question I have is on page 7, I think it's, no, GF4, it's on page 4, I guess. Balance January 1st, is that the sales tax? What is that line there? 17?
This is your additional money, Fund 002 up there at the top.
So 2020, we have no additional money?
2020, what we are proposing right now, or the way it's working, you have essentially loaned this fund almost $3.5 million from the main general fund. So the idea is this money is all spent as of right now.
Okay.
We are waiting for the revenue to come in 2020 to pay back that loan. At that point, then we will determine if there is any additional funds, which there may be a few $100,000. And then, of course, the end of 2020 is the end of the 5 years.
Yeah, sales
We will still get 1 quarter worth in
Delay.
2021 because of how the state reimburses. That 1 quarter will amount to, maybe $1.2 million. So our goal here, and actually, we either need to end the year with at least $2,500,000, or we need to have paid back at least $2,500,000 by the end of this year, or by the end of 2020, I should say, to be in good shape. So as of right now, I'm just showing it as a zero balance.
So we're just
meaning
being conservative.
If we do have any balance, we're gonna pay the cash advance off. So it will be very close to zero at the end of 2020.
I didn't have any other questions.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second?
Roll call, Julie?
Kathleen?
Yes.
Sabrina?
Yes.
Vicky?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to pass a resolution to adopt the county's tax budget for fiscal year 2020.
Second?
Roll call, Julie?
Kathleen?
Yes.
Sabrina?
Yes.
Vicky?
Yes.
Just going back to the Wyndham issue, is the board going to put on the agenda when you want to discuss it again, or do you want me to bring it back at a certain time?
I don't know how you guys feel, but I think it would be helpful if you're able to, Todd, to come up with a proposed process for us to oversee these funds. And then, I don't know how quickly you can do that, but then we could look at how that would apply to this
Consistency.
request and then go from there.
And the other thing that I talked to Stacy about was the fact that they bring the party that's interested in the funds with them, which then puts us in an awkward situation, because then of course it's all rush. And they said that they had been requested to do that by Commissioner Kerrigan, and I said, well, it puts us in an awkward situation when you have, the recipient there, and this is the first we're hearing about it. So they agreed that from now on, that they would come to us first to propose it, and then give us time to, and then that they would also start sending us stuff ahead of time, because a lot of times
Well, that
we
becomes the
don't get
issue, I think.
anything in advance.
Yeah, I think Mike liked to hear from the people, because often when NDS comes, you have questions, and like, well, we don't know, we'll have to check. But I think it should be made clear that that is a presentation, decisions will not be made at that time. And that, I think, is the link that has never been established of, you are only presenting right now, we're not going to get an answer on this. And that's where the formal process of,
And the
You know,
notice piece. I
right,
think is
you're gonna present,
missing.
here's when we're gonna award each year, so that people know they're not gonna expect an answer, and that does put you on the spot, make it uncomfortable.
And just like everyone else that comes to us, normally, they give us information ahead of time, so we can review it and be in a good situation if we had to make a decision, but, so those are things when we're going over the process.
And there's, the economic development revolver will have its own process, because those do tend to come up, oh my gosh, we have a business, we need to act quickly, and we need to be able to do that. The housing is a little bit different, because it tends not to be as abrupt of, a business wants to move in, that's different than the housing aspect, so we could have two different processes. Okay, I will get that, and then you said you're meeting next week with NDS?
NDS?
They proposed next week or the following
Or the
week.
following
I think
week.
I gave them dates next week, but we don't have it set yet.
So we won't
Have a decision.
bring this back till end of July, beginning of August. Is that-
Well, I don't see, I think that
Just in case they call to add.
that seems, I think those can happen on different tracks. I think I
Okay.
just need to understand the parameters of that better as
Okay.
it being a new issue. So I think you can proceed, without
On that
waiting
schedule.
for me to meet with them.
So I guess for.
You'd like to wait to tell Wyndham, though, you want me to bring the process and then decide whether Wyndham fits in within that? Is that what we're?
No,
Where's
that's two
Wyndham at,
different.
I guess is what-
Two different tracks. We need to make a decision on this, but before I feel like we can make a decision, we need to know what other things that we have out there that might be able to utilize these funds, and because that'll pretty much deplete that fund, and then here we have, Chin, or, I don't know the timeframes.
So right now, we don't have a communication process to let everyone know what we have. Is that correct, Tom?
That's
Is that what
supposed to
we're
be from
saying?
our
So-
administrators.
When you have asked NDS and RPC to come in, they have told you
That they let
that they
people
send
know.
notices out of the grant to every community. And that partly is true.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of communities have quit participating in the process because
Match money.
in terms of competitive grants, they don't feel they've ever qualified, and some of that is true. Ravenna always fares very well because of its low mod. Wyndham always fares very well.
Mhm.
So in terms of the state awarding the grants, a lot of communities have given up. I don't think those communities realize that the revolvers are more independent from that process, meaning you get to decide. So long as they meet the qualifications, there aren't extra points awarded, so to speak, like the state does for the grants themselves. RPC and NDS have never put out a separate publication saying the commissioners want to spend X dollars out of the revolvers this year. Please submit proposals for that funding. And that is what communities come to you afterwards and say, well, we didn't realize it was easy to get this money, or that you guys were giving money.
And a lot of that's
meaning
like the
commissioners.
townships and stuff.
Right, and the
They're
townships
ones
is
that
where
are
most of it's gonna
frustrated.
qualify, well, Ravenna and the townships. The other thing is not many of our communities have gotten the low mod designations. The census does it in large groups, but you can also have RPC do surveys. If, for example, if there's a street or a playground that only services a certain neighborhood, RPC can actually get that single area qualified. And I'm not sure a lot of our communities, number one, realize that process is there, but number two, they don't see the need to take advantage of it because there is no money associated with doing all that work. Whereas if they saw, oh wait, you guys are giving money, maybe we will get some of these areas
So it is a
designated.
communication.
So that's the
thing.
breakdown
Yeah.
that I see happening
Yeah.
in the process.
Okay.
I think we should wait to respond to Wyndham until we have a process that we think works for us in place, and then fit that in. And we can tell them, look, we're reviewing how we approach these funds. We're trying to do
Mhm.
that quickly, so we're not, gonna leave them hanging out there for too long, but I think that is a responsible
Well,
way
yeah.
to proceed.
The
Well,
process.
my understanding is Wyndham are still doing the front of the building regardless, which is originally all they had intended to do. So I don't know that we're
Holding them up.
holding up a project per se. I know it would be nice if the whole building got done, but
Yeah.
I don't know that there's as much urgency on that side. That at least was my understanding.
And I saw Mayor Blewett yesterday, and she didn't say anything about it. So if it was a sense of urgency, I think she would have definitely said something or asked if we had made a decision or something. So,
So
She's
taking
not the
time-
mayor anymore, is she?
or not the
She's
mayor, I'm sorry, she's the
administrator,
administrator,
yeah.
yeah.
So for now, Wyndham is gonna be on hold, so to speak, while
Right.
we
Until
review the
we-
process, and that's what we'll tell them if anyone would call and ask.
Right.
Well,
Just to-
not only the process, but what other things, I mean,
Do we have any other
Because-
requests?
the thing of it is they're making an exception out of the CDBG fund that
Well, that's with
normally
your current request.
it's residential.
Yeah,
And they got approved because this is for like their town hall, so that's the other
that's the
thing
problem
that's
with the current
concerning.
process is you don't know what requests are now because no one makes requests until they're told to make a request. And so like Oakwood and Chin, we don't know what's being requested because there isn't a request yet. I mean, that's your. and-
I'm sure everybody got the email about someone just wrote in, and this could be just off the wall saying, we need a grocery store in Wyndham, we don't need,
Mhm.
improvement on the community center. So I wonder if they had a process to kind of have public meetings
Good
and poll
community
people to
feedback.
see what is our need.
Generally, when I worked at Akron, we had the same thing, and that was part of our process, was what have you done to engage the community
Right,
before you even come to us to
exactly.
request the money?
Exactly.
And they had to show, we've held these meetings, the public wants this direction, but we can't fund it, will you come and help?
Yeah, I would like to know that.
So that was part of the process, the vetting process, so to speak, as it came up through the system. We could have a layer like that
Right.
in there.
I'd like to see that.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, all right, I'll work on that, it may be 2 weeks.
Okay.
We'll come back and discuss. I think that covers everything. We'll get Ryan to provide you a summary.
Sure.
I'll send you the summary of the outstanding requests for this year's funding that you wanted to look at, and I will work on a process for the removal.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, John. Janet, did you have anything for us? I mean, was it in our packet? Okay, I was gonna say, I can't find
No,
anything.
this is a quick update.
Okay.
Yeah. I just wanted to let you guys know what we did at the employee luncheon on June 28th. Just want to give you some numbers. We actually prepared lunch for 540 employees. We served here approximately about 258, 260. And then the sheriff and the juvenile court, we actually delivered out to them. So that's that was 205 lunches we prepared and delivered. And then there were some departments that came here and picked up, and there were 77 lunches that we
Did we deliver donuts to some
we
instead?
did.
Okay.
Yeah, the engineer's office wanted donuts.
Instead of lunch?
Yeah,
They just
yeah.
thought it was easier, yeah.
I want lunch.
Because I saw a couple of the engineer guys over the weekend, and they're like, "Thank you for the donuts." And I said, "Donuts?" And they're like, "Yeah, for the employee appreciation." So
Yeah.
Give me a
Well,
hamburger.
They requested donuts,
Okay.
yeah.
Probably
They
because they're
did.
not in the office.
Pardon me?
Probably because they're out on the road.
yeah,
Yeah,
they're not.
Could be, yeah.
Because we actually ordered them, and then someone from the engineer's office
What
went
picked
in
them up?
like 6 o'clock in the morning.
Give me a
before they went
donut
out
after
to
the hamburger.
I know, I know, that would be nice, huh?
Yeah.
You're gonna donut, get a dessert. And then we also, JDC, Juvenile Detention Center, they also wanted donuts. So we actually delivered those donuts the Thursday before the luncheon.
Well, those
So
are
it was
kids,
just-
right?
No, those are the
No, those are
workers.
the
Oh, okay,
employees.
okay.
Yeah, but they, I think last year they had the hamburgers and hot dogs, and they just found out it was.
Well, that's right, this is just
easier.
employees, we didn't give
Yeah.
any to the.
Right, yeah,
Okay,
and it was just
gotcha.
easier for them, so they just requested donuts this year. So, donut, hamburger.
Now, did we do that last year, Janet, give donuts instead of lunch, if that's what they wanted? I
They
don't
did,
remember.
they wanted it, yeah.
Okay.
And they requested it, like we
Okay,
were.
that's
Oh, I
nice.
understand,
Yeah.
I just didn't realize we did that
I
last year.
know JDC got food, I do remember that last
Okay.
year. I can't remember if there was anybody that wanted donuts last year, but yeah, if it's easier for the department.
I was gonna say, and I remember the one year, we took out like pop and chips and stuff for like third shift for the sheriff's department.
Yeah.
Because it was, they didn't want donuts, but yet they didn't want, no one's there to cook. And
Right.
so we've done all kinds of alternates, so.
Yeah, and actually
Good.
before the luncheon, it was just easier for Jenna. Jenna made the rounds to all the departments to deliver the pop and the chips and everything before the luncheon. So in that way, for that day, the day of the luncheon, they just got the hamburgers and hot dogs. And then the pickup, it was Susan, Jen, and I, we packaged everything up for all the departments picking up, and we had the to-go containers, and that was,
Mhm.
that took some time.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it's a lot of work, Janet, we know that,
For the
yeah.
pickups, but I just wanna give you a count, that we actually did really well.
Great.
Did
And then-
someone take Mr. Dumas?
We did, yeah, actually Lori Kelsey delivered
Uh-huh.
it for us, cause she said she's going out there and, do you mind taking the sign? So David was very appreciative of the sign, of course, he was saying it wasn't necessary, but
It was.
it was
It was.
necessary for us, I mean,
I think that's
and
pretty cool.
I tried to count the names to see who all signed, and I got roughly about 150 signatures, so not
Mhm.
everyone signed it for whatever reason, they just didn't see it, or I don't know.
Yeah, whatever.
But, so the page was filled with signatures. I mean, there was very little room left for anybody to sign their name, but, he was very appreciative of it, but, again, he just said he's very blessed, and he enjoyed donating the food to us. So, I was like, oh my gosh, like, we feel blessed.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yes, I just want to tell you that.
Okay.
I think there were a couple things that we ended up returning after the fact, just to, get the money back. 'Cause, like, we had 2 unopened big boxes of chips. That was roughly about $30, so we returned the unopened boxes of chip, and then there were, some 24 cans of pop or cases that we returned.
Okay.
But yeah, and I sent out an email to the department head saying if anybody wants pop and water, we have it up here. So, but so far, no one must want pop and water. But we have leftover pop and water, so we'll try to get rid of that.
Okay,
But yeah, just like a
Great.
quick update. And then I only have, with Kelly Jo, we have an executive session.
okay.
And what is it for?
It is
G1?
for-
Yes.
Compensation.
Okay. Okay. I'll make a motion to go into executive session for G1 for compensation of a public employee.
Second.
Roll call, Julie?
Kathleen?
Yes.
Sabrina?
Yep.
Vicky?
Yes.